All right. Well, happy Thursday, everybody. Let's get started. So, this month's training is all about leverage. And sometimes in the real estate space, I think we very quick think leverage is you need to hire someone, hire an assistant, hire a buyer agent. We'll get to that kind of near the end. There is definitely some benefits to hiring people, but I definitely think there's some keystones that we need to all make sure we're in alignment with to make sure leverage speeds up your success in the right way. So, um, one of the first thing that I want to be careful about is just not to get the cart before the horse, right? So leverage is often, like we said, talked about when hiring people, but there's so many ways you can leverage your business. And I'll just give you a very quick story about myself to give you an example and illustration. So I have been a licensed real estate agent for 20 years. I started out as a solo agent, very quickly did all the things. Rookie of the year, became very successful within the first 2 years. Joined a small team, so there's two other agents and myself. We built that up. We had assistants. Then we expanded that small team into a mega team. There was almost 30 different agents at some capacity, and we evolved that into a brokerage. I give you that example because throughout all different layers of that growth was leverage, right? So we didn't just magically wake up and have 43 agents on the team. We didn't magically wake up and launch a full-fledged brokerage with over 100 agents, right? We built leverage through what we're going to talk about today, which is systems, technology, and then people, right? So just so you know, I think sometimes we're all excited. We all have opportunity to grow, but sometimes we're growing. Sometimes the cart before the horse. So today we're going to break it into three parts, just like I was kind of alluding to: systems, technology, and people. And we need to build it in that order. And sometimes especially I've been coaching for over 10 years now, many different levels of teams, mega teams, small teams, large teams, and even solo agents. The first thing is you feel like you don't have any free time. You feel like you're working all the time. You're answering calls. You're doing everything you can. So you need to hire someone. I will challenge you and we'll go through specific systems. If you build some systems into your schedule, into your life, you actually can do more with less as far as with people, right? So, first thing we're going to talk about is the systems itself, right? And I know, sorry about that. My dog Chloe decided to, hey, you're good. Um, the first thing I wanted to say was, as salespeople, I'm generally not a systems-based person, right? I like talking to people, I like being in front of people, but I very quickly learned that without systems, everything depended on my memory, my mood, the chance. Like if I was super busy, honestly, my buyers and sellers probably got a less quality experience with me. And I see that historically happen over and over again, right? So systems create repeatable results. When you're busy, when you're slow, it kind of looks like to the consumer, it looks like you're a duck underwater, right? You may be paddling really hard because you got so much going on, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life. But with the right systems, it looks like you got everything under control, right? It looks like you have the ship is running in the right direction, right? So these are some examples. We're going to be even more specific. So the first thing I want you to do is start to like kind of dissect your business, right? Every little thing. I honestly would recommend you writing it down, an operating procedure, SOP. Write it down like a Word document, every single thing you do. And the most basic thing needs to be written down. And sometimes you're like, when you do that, you're like, wow, I do a lot. Also, it's kind of a roadmap for maybe your future. So maybe you do eventually hire an assistant, or maybe you do hire someone to help you, or you build a team or a mega team. You now kind of have a blueprint of how you're doing things. And of course, there's so much out there. None of this is reinventing the wheel. You can chat GBT it, you can grab documents that other teams are willing to share with you, but you need a standard operating system procedure, right? So buyer seller onboarding, listing and launching playbook, prospecting routine. So many times I hear agents like, oh, I don't want to prospect. It's early because you wake up and then you're like, look at your phone or look at your database and you don't have a plan of like what that looks like and how you go through that. So a good system really does allow you to predict and scale. And that's when I coach people one-on-one, I'll tell you that's probably 80% of what I'm doing is helping you build systems. But number one, you just haven't spent time to slow down, to speed up, to actually do, or to kind of poke holes in the systems you have so you can build them more robustly for your business. So a lot of times in this business, we always say leads are important, but I think the systems are the foundation before you even get the leads. So I'll get off my soapbox there. So the foundation for today is these three blocks, right? So think of it like a department store like Target or Walmart, right? There's three different, maybe it's the kids sections, the men's section, and the women's section, right? So it's you got to think about and break your business apart into three major systems, right? Lead generation always needs and we'll go into these deeper. Lead generation is really this freshwater approach, right? What are you doing to constantly bring in fresh new leads into your database, right? So adding to your database, adding to your opportunities of converting leads. You and I know the market is shrinking as far as what buyers and sellers are looking at, right? There was almost 5 million homes sold 2 years ago, US wide. We're now about 4 million, still plenty of houses to sell, but there is some pause when interest rates are higher, inventory is not super great. And we've been going through this honestly for probably 6 or 7 years, right? So lead generation is a separate department, and there's got to be systems in place so that when you're busy with transactions, which is on the other side of your screen, the right-hand side, your lead generation still can be catching like a net with catching fish, right? Second one in the middle of your screen, relationship building. This is probably the most common. People train about this a lot. Coaches talk about this a lot. Relationship building is database, is loving on your people, right? It's client parties and it's all that stuff. That's time consuming to build and time consuming to plan. And it's probably the most expensive out of all these three departments, right? You know, you got to love on your people. That's, dinners and coffees and client events and pop buys and marketing. All that does cost money. So relationship building, we know repeat business is important, but it is generally the most expensive out of all three of these departments. Nothing wrong with it. Get a high return on it. Then you transition to transactions. I think people default to a transaction coordinator for this, but there's other things we got to put in place to make sure that. And then there's that line where there is the transition of appointment. So that's just setting the stage for our conversation today. A lot of I'll be referencing back and forth to this kind of like diagram so we can kind of keep lack of confusion off the table, okay? So the first one we are talking about based on the pyramid we just worked through was the systems, right? So when you're looking at the first kind of, these are the three buckets of humans, of departments, this is what we're going to start with. So the first thing is the systems inside lead generation. Again, this is new conversations and new opportunities, right? And I know there's a blurred line sometimes of building relationships and lead generation. So maybe you're doing a client party, which is in relationship building, and it turns out to be a new lead. I get that, right? So some of these overlap into lead generation and relationship building, but if you look at them separately, you will see some kind of delineation, right? So systems are kind of what I call the bone structure. When we go into technology, it's the physical apps, the websites, the URLs, the actual technology that you're using the system for, right? So the core of the system is like the skeleton of everything, right? So giving you a specific example, like a prospecting calendar, physically having it written out or it's on your Google Calendar of specific days that you're going to lead gen on specific types of humans, right? So maybe day one, Monday, you're going to call your sphere. Maybe day two, you're going to do past clients. Day three, you're going to do open house leads, current and past, like different things like that, right? So you need to have a prospecting calendar system, right? I've seen the most basic thing where it's written down Monday through Friday. These are the groups of humans I'm going to reach out to, things like that. Lead capture systems are probably the most underutilized source, right? So we spend all this time on social media and creating all these amazing posts and taglines and trending little fun things. But are we creating landing pages where they can go and click on that and find other information about you or search properties on their own? Yet you could probably see transparently what they're seeing, right? Using QR codes, sign up forms, everything should be tied to your CRM. Lead routing, that's really just kind of categorizing your leads. You know, I know leads are not all created equal. So there's opportunities where you think it's a hot lead, you think they're motivated, and then suddenly they have bad credit or their timeline changes, right? So there's literally categories. So when I coach someone through their pipeline or sales funnel, if you've ever coached with me or ever heard me talk about my sales funnel training, hot, warm, cold, A, B, C is like you got those three separate buckets. And honestly, you have to have very clear boundaries. So for a hot lead for me, it would be 30 to 60 days. Like that's the most. They're going to definitely do something with you. They're definitely going to buy or sell with you, but there's a time frame. Warm would be obviously somebody that's probably 60 to 120 days, so it's like 2 to 3 months. And then cold are going to be either new leads or something a little long term, maybe 6 months, 8 months out, right? So again, a system seems crazy, but I was looking at someone's CRM yesterday and we were categorizing her leads and she was like, oh, these are all hot. And then when we actually went through them, she was like, oh, they're actually not going to buy till January of next year. I'm like, well, that's not going to pay your bills right now. So they can't classify that or systematically track your lead routing system as a hot, right? That's probably a C or a cold. Yes, it's going to turn into business, but you can't count that until early next year, right? Follow-up system, we all know money is in the follow-up scripts, automation, reminders, things like that. And then a tracking system. Dashboards to actually look at what you're doing. Sometimes we're doing better than we think. Sometimes we're doing worse than we think, right? So when I look at someone's prospecting, I want to see physically how many calls or how many texts they've sent out. At the end of the week, you're like, wow, I've sent 50 text message out. That may make you feel really good. If you are tracking things in a systematic way and you see that, oh, I've only sent out 10 or 12 text messages, wow, that's probably not going to be enough to build enough lead generation into your business to actually hit your goals, right? So the first thing I want you to really do, that department of lead generation, think about all the systems tracking. And this is not the sexy part of our job, but it is so imperative for you to be able to reflect on that, right? I think of large CEOs, like use the most current example, like Red Lobster, right? Red Lobster, a company we all know and love, but it was in bankruptcy, right? They started to look and track all the systems and track all the things that were going well and the things that were not going well, right? And they very quickly realized some of the things weren't adding up. And so they obviously scaled and did something different. And they're starting to rock and roll again, which I'm happy for them. So the second part of the system is relationship building, right? So this one is probably, again, the most common that people focus on because it's the most fun. It's the kind of the sexier thing. It's like loving on your people. It's loving on your database, right? So it's very heavy. The system is your database itself. I will tell you, I use a database. Most of the clients that I use a database, but I have a few clients that use a really sexy, really great spreadsheet. It is a segmented system. So segmented of like what type of clients they are, past clients, vendors, like what lead sources, things like that. It has all the other details such as birthdays, closings, and things like that. But I'll say for scalability of any business, every business has a database, right? Starbucks, every time you scan that barcode in that app, that's a database that they're using to analyze and figure out what the consumer is buying, what you're doing, what you're spending, right? And then hopefully seeing your repeat business, right? We call it a touch system. So how many times you actually touch your database. I also see historically that we're in a relationship building in the system side. There's no system to it. So you just open up your CRM or open up your phone and you just call your favorite people, the ones that are most comfortable. So that's going to be probably your top 10 or 20 people. Well, we know if you're building a database of a good size to hit six figures easily, you need to have at least 350 to 400 people in your database. Well, if you're only talking to the top 20 people, you're leaving over 300 people in that database that are just sitting there. Most likely, they're your next transaction. You just haven't gone deep enough systematically into your relationship building system. So making sure you're getting all the way through your database in like a 60 to 90-day cycle. But we talk about those touches, right? So a touch could be a text, an email, it could be anything. It's that where there's a two-way communication, right? It could be lunch, it could be coffee, different things like that. Additional touches, but once you hit those core touches of that back and forth conversation, I definitely love seeing automation of emails, which we'll talk about that in the technology section. That's a touch, right? So when they see that email, they see your face, they see your logo, that's a touch, they remember that. Social media obviously is connected to touch systems. I just would be careful that using email and social media as your primary touch system is going to be tricky because we're in a relationship building business and it's hard to make those super personal. Nothing beats breaking bread, buying someone a coffee, text them happy birthday, happy anniversary, all those things. That's so much more personal, but it takes a system to do that because over time, as you're building this business and you're building 400 of those relationships, it can get exhausting to figure out who you've talked to and who you haven't. So obviously, I'm a big passionate person about database, but it's connected directly to the system of relationship building. Client events, annual parties, pop-bys, milestones. I think we all have that marketing calendar, which is the system, right? So we have a schedule of when we're going to do the party, when we're going to pop by, things like that. But I think at the end of the day, the tricky thing is that we lose track of that system. We come up with it at the end of the year for the beginning of the next year, and then by this time, unfortunately, honestly, we're not following the system that we built, right? Content system, same thing, right? We build a content calendar for social media and other things like that, come up with all these great ideas, ChatGPT or social media manager, and then we kind of fall off the wagon, right? So systems, 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 and then referral asking systems. You need a system for that. I think our default, most of us don't want to be gross, right? We don't want to be gross and not ask for the opportunity, but we do. We kind of slip and just what I call go into the friend zone. You need to have scripts and prompts and have like a text message created so you can just copy and send it, right? That's a system. Some of the most basic systems is just having it pre-written and be able to kind of move on with it. So you have to be consistent with these systems. And the last one is transactions in this system sequence, right? I know you know how to go through the transaction. I know you work hard through every phase of the purchase agreement or the listing agreement, right? But you actually need to have a checklist. You actually need to have a workflow for every single client. I have people that use and I'm happy to share if you want it, but uh, like a tab for every single client. So if they're in a seller transaction, they have a checklist, right? And yes, some of it's stuff you already do. It's like robotic and you do it all the time, but you're going to sometimes forget stuff. If you have multiple transactions, I've been there, done that. I've not ordered the termite inspection. I've missed things because I didn't have a system in place. So listing, launching, closed, contract to close system, client communication system. We're seeing days on market with listings much, much higher. So sellers are getting more worried, right? They're going to need more handholding. So actually have a system of like how often am I going to and frequently am I going to communicate with my seller? What are the words? What's the text? What's the email going to look like? So you're not retyping an email every single time, using a template, using a system so you can get through those updates more efficiently. Compliance and paperwork, every brokerage has a different compliance process, but essentially it's all the same in the sense that DPR wants everything done. So it's organizing your folders. It's getting everything organized so that when you upload it into your brokerage's compliance system, it's just drag and drop and move on, right? Again, I've been there where I didn't have a system for that, and I'm looking all over my electronic system to find the property disclosure or the signed one, and it's signed by the buyer, it's not signed by the seller. So I'm chasing the electronic document So instead of it just uploading it into my brokerage compliance portal, I'm spending 30 minutes chasing the paperwork, trying to find where it is in my email, where it is in my documents. I'm sure that's not happening to you. I say that, but if it is, that's a system that you got to pull back and go, how do I get this to where it it can be easier and less time consuming? And then post close systems, uh, pretty self-explanatory, but closing gifts, yes, testimony requests, all that stuff. I'll send you this document or this presentation, and I'll also maybe jog some of a little bit of a to-do list for you, a little checklist just to kind of audit yourself, which I'll give you that a form as well. So the second thing we're going to talk about is technology in the same department. And technology has come a long way. I definitely think in the last 10 years, technology has been frustrating to be honest in real estate because we have so many apps and so many websites we now have to be have logins and passwords and have to change all the time and then we have to learn them and CRM changes, right? But it does have to be part of that first leverage before you get up to the people phase. Now that you're analyzed and audited your systems, now you got to start to go, what can I use technology wise to make my life easier? Technology should be, honestly, it should be the rocket fuel in your time, right? It should be the multiplier of your time, right? The cool thing is now we got AI at a pretty high level that we all are using at a pretty high level. CRMs are always have been automated, but now they kind of, I really do think they've gotten a little simpler. I know some of them still are frustrating, but they have general follow-ups and reminders. Social media now has schedulers. We've had that for a while, but people are leaning into them more and more. I'm a big fan of appointment scheduling systems, direct mail automation, right? Don't buy, don't create postcards, print them, and put a stamp on yourself. There's what we call every door direct marketing services where you can upload the photo of your postcard, you can upload the labels, and they'll just print them and they'll mail them for you. Honestly, probably a 15-20 cent difference between you doing it old school at your kitchen table with a stamp um, versus just having someone else do it and actually automating that. Again, time is money in that. And then just making sure you have a lot of email templates. Again, ChatGPT is great. Automation emails can be sent through your Gmail. I'll show you real quick. That could be an option. Or again, using it through your CRM. I know sometimes CRMs have these canned or generic templates, and a lot of the agents I coach hate them all. So you're like, okay, well, let's start out. And what's the system? Like how many you're going to send, and then what do they look like? Okay, so that's where you kind of tackle into that, and we're going to go through just visually a couple of examples. So I won't bore you, but when you're talking about technology with lead generation, one of the first things I was literally on a coaching call yesterday, and I said, well, what's your intake for buyers and sellers? Like, how do you ask them questions? I usually get the answer of, I ask them about the appointment, or I send them like a paper PDF. Well, first of all, like people aren't going to print that off. They're not going to write it. They're not going to send it to you, right? So you need to have a digital or technology onboarding system. The second thing is if you asked all those questions at the listing appointment or buyer consultation, that's going to take a lot longer, right? I will tell you, when I had 27 listings in 1 month, 27. And I had to build the system to get through those appointments faster. I didn't have time to do a 2 or 3 hour listing appointment because I was going on 3 to 4 of them a week, right? And then still doing all the other work. So I would recommend doing something very simple. I'm happy to share this one. Have a Google Doc. It has all the questions you're going to ask your seller or buyer. It has a URL link, which you can see on the screen. Then I'm going to copy and paste that into a text replace. So this is a screenshot of my phone where I go into the general settings and it's a text replace. So think of it, you probably have seen the phone call and you're in a meeting and it swipes up and it says the text can automatically pop up and it'll say, sorry, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back later. That's a auto-generated text replacement that is factory default that all of our phones have. Well, what I would recommend is coming up with your text replace script. in this example on the right-hand side is a sample. I emailed that to myself so I can copy and paste it in. So I came up with a little script and it says, hey, I'm looking forward to getting your home sold. This is an example of a listing, a seller information form. I put the URL from the Google form in there. And so now when I type in on my phone a seller questionnaire, I type in SQ, that's my text replace, it automatically populates this text message, right? Again, technology, the system is probably more towards obviously creating the form. The technology is going to be using Google Form, which is the technology, and text replace, which is technology, right? So they're hand in glove. So a lot of that system is going to be directly connected to the technology, right? But you have to have both. They kind of are literally hand in glove. So this is an example where, yeah, you're on the fly. Maybe you're going to a listing appointment tomorrow, but you need to get some information from them. You want to expedite the listing appointment tomorrow. So let's send them a standardized text message that says, here it is. It looks personal. It looks like it's spontaneous, but you send this to every single seller appointment. You send this similar concept, this same exact different form, of course, to a buyer contact, right? Number one, it shows consistency in your business because you're going to have all of these over the course of the years. It shows you're professional, and it shows you know what you're doing, right? It's not a piece of paper. It's also not doing this deep analysis in front of them. I will say that I know this is in the presentation training, but I then print these. I print the seller questionnaire, print the buyer questionnaire that they've answered, and I highlight things that they've said or they responded to, and I get more clarity on it, right? So it's still using it, but I'm now using the system and technology to expedite my listing appointment. And honestly, it gives them more time to think about their answers. Sometimes when I ask them a question on the paper version or in person, they honestly gave me the wrong answer. It's just because they were trying to spit an answer out rather than just kind of giving it a minute to think about it. So this is an example of technology with lead generation. Technology, the most common one I could think of was automating all of your birthdays and home anniversaries right in your CRM. So once you add a date field, this is an example through Follow Up Boss, but all CRMs have it. Once you add a closing date in your CRM, you can automate a pretty cute little happy home anniversary or a happy birthday automation email, right? So the great thing is that's the first start of it. I've seen people take this to a whole nother level where they have reminders of these home anniversaries and reminders of their birthdays, and they also send like a cute graphic via text message. So really kind of adding that personal touch to it, but it's building the relationship. It's continuing through. So yes, you sold them a house 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but they forgot the date, you forgot the date, and now technology allows you to keep that relationship going through an automation system. So a lot of times when I'm working with a client, the first thing I want to look at is, do you have your birthdays and your home anniversary automation systems in your CRM working? 9 out of 10 times the answer is no. You don't even have the closing dates in there, right? And birthdays are harder to find, but you either ask the customer or you go on social media through their profile. It takes time, but this automation and this technology allows you to look like you're the pro, and it's relationship building. And again, it's leverage because we can't remember everything. This is an example of a Gmail follow-up system. So transactions, I'm all about next step emails. I know we talk to the client throughout the transaction. I know we send them text messages, but buyers and sellers get overwhelmed, right? So the minute the listing goes under contract, there's a lot of things that happen, especially on the buyer side of things. So creating an automated email that kind of goes to them. But if you're not using your CRM properly, which happens, maybe you're just going to use it through Gmail. So this is a literally example of a next step email. We literally automated this and created this using ChatGPT to kind of get some formality to this form. Literally, then you go into your Gmail and you can see the screen. You literally can you copy and paste it in an email, then you create a template. So now every single time a buyer goes under contract, you're just going to pop up this template through your Gmail. Of course, customize it by the buyer's name, take out parts that aren't appropriate to the transaction. But the cool thing, the technology is it can, number one, save this. You can save this template and use it forever, right? Because it's a great email, but if you're busy, you may not have the great email if you don't have a template, right? So different things like that. There's also, you can, you know this, but in Gmail you can schedule when it's sent. So maybe you're working late. Maybe you're at 11 o'clock at night and you know that probably it's not appropriate to send this email to your buyer, but you can schedule through Gmail to send this at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., something like that. So using technology to be able to just get you in a place where you're not having to work 70 hours a week is huge because it really does make a difference. Okay. All right, and then the last, probably most popular, most common conversation is people, right? I think agents historically think, again, like I said at the beginning of the training, you have to hire someone immediately. I agree with it and disagree with it, so I'm gonna kind of walk you through that a little bit. Um, but people do can make a big difference in your world. I will tell you again, so I built a pretty large business in Lynchburg, Virginia, and then my wife and I moved to Richmond, Virginia, and I was basically starting over. I didn't know anybody in the market. I was rebuilding my team. I had just left, my team, my brokerage, so I went to a new city, a new state. Um, but I didn't really have any business. I probably had two or three like deals going, and I hired my assistant. And I remember my broker saying, you can't, why do you have a transaction coordinator? And then why are you hiring an assistant? You don't even have enough business to support that. And my response to her was a little bit of defiance was, well, that's how I'm going to build it, right? That's how I'm going to build that. So I will tell you, I've historically, personally, always hired an assistant probably before, quote, I was ready. But I started to realize very quickly what I was good at and what I was bad at. I am good at people. I'm good at negotiations. I'm good at appointments. I'm not great at paperwork. I'm not great at some of the marketing that historically is done in real estate. And so I decided to spend my time, energy, and talent going kind of in the front of the business when I knew the back of the business still had to get done. So I hired someone. So leveraging as hiring a transaction coordinator is probably the first thing. And I know agents sometimes are like, ugh, I don't know if I have the money for that. Um, but I don't think you have the money not to do that. So hiring a transaction coordinator, the first of all, it's pay as you go, right? It's not a salary position. So if you're anywhere between 6 to 10 to maybe even 12 transactions a year, transaction coordinator makes sense because you pay them at closing. They're paying per transaction. Of course, if you have zero closings that month, you have zero staffing expense, right? Then I would go into virtual assistants for database and marketing manager. We'll go in that a little bit deeper in a second. But virtual assistants are powerful, a powerful tool. I think sometimes, I don't know why, but real estate agents, we have a tendency to hire someone local. And it probably is someone like our past client or our mom or our sister. I get the convenience of it. I get the idea of like I know that person, but I will tell you they're not properly trained and they probably haven't been in the business, that side of the business, long enough to know what's best. And let's be honest, you're too busy to probably train them, right? So virtual assistants historically are trained, they have this level of accountability, and they can do 90%, 95% of what you need without being in your state, in your city. Just a thought. And of course, you have partners like your stagers, your photographers, lenders. I will say I don't think you leverage them enough. Um, they have opportunities of marketing, they have opportunities of referrals, and I don't think we lean into them as much. But I think people do help you maintain your activities. So I'm giving you an example. This is kind of the last segment of this is and the people side of things, they can help you make more money finding more leads. I think sometimes when you hire assistants, you think it's just marketing and admin, but so many times because it needs to be, you constantly need to be thinking of these departments. Your people, the people that you hire, your assistant, whatever it is, they need to be helping you make it easier through systems technology to attract more leads, right? if you are approaching it that way, they're giving you more opportunities to attract more leads. They pay for themselves, right? So inside sales agents, that's pretty common. They make outbound calls for you. There's tons of companies that do that for you. They can call old leads, they can call internet leads, they can do circle prospecting, do a lot of things, right? Marketing assistants, we talked about that, but really running your social media, actually doing ad campaigns. I was working with a virtual assistant the other day. We were looking at the ad campaign, the money spent, the clicks. They're good at analyzing that and deciding where the money should go. And if certain posts are hitting and certain posts are not, that's something. Probably the most basic leverage of lead generation is showing assistants or how open house partners, right? If you have four listings, you can't do open houses at all four. You got maybe someone in your brokerage, an agent, that's leverage of lead generation. Maybe there's an agreement that you have with a referral fee or something. Showing assistance, very, very common, right? So maybe you're having a busy weekend, you got two or three clients, then spontaneously another one wants to see something. You can have them show a house or two. There's nothing wrong with them opening a door, and when they are ready, when the customer is ready to write an offer, you step back in. If you do it the right way, building the right system, and then even adding some technology, by the time they get to the people side of the showing assistant, it's pretty natural and normal. And then the last one's the people, I think, for lead generation you underutilize is your actual referral partners, right? Hear agents all the time, 212, BNI, all those are great, but strategically really trying to say, hey, loan officer, hey, insurance agent, I'm specifically want two referrals a year from you. If you had your five specialists, your five referral partners, two apiece, two, four, six, eight, 10, they could give you 10 additional deals per year through lead generation if you actually leverage the people in your world, right? They're going to benefit. They're going to get your services. Buyer's going to use them. The seller's going to use them. But why not build those relationships? So making sure you're leveraging those people through lead gen. Relationship building, I think this is a no-brainer as well. I have one agent that's just killing it right now. She's hired a client care coordinator. Essentially, they manage all the birthdays, the home anniversaries, the cute little gifts, the closings, right? They're paying this person an hourly wage, but they're monitoring their hours. Or I've seen it where they do it like batched, like they're paying by the project, right? So maybe you are having a client event. I know that you may love doing all those things and planning all those events, but is that the most productive use of your time, right? While someone is maybe helping you organize it, you can go be lead generating, or you could go get those RSVPs, or you could go on a listing appointment. And then I also have another person that has a social media manager. She's a solo agent, but she's made the decision that she needed someone to help. Number one, for accountability, have a social media manager. So they had come up with ideas. There's a schedule. There's a content shoot, video shoot, 2 days a month. Uh, they're paying them 200-300 bucks, right? Just to have a social media manager. Yes, she could do it on her own. Yes, that's possible, but leveraging those people allows her for number one, more creativity, but also accountability to get it done. Because sometimes the editing is just ruthless with all the social media we have to do. And then people with technology, or people with transactions, yes, a TC is most common. I will say there's a kind of a point where you have to make a decision not to use a transaction coordinator. So once you're at about 10 to 12 transactions, right, then you look at the pay per file fee that a transaction coordinator, you'll actually run the math, and it'll be cheaper to hire a virtual assistant or an assistant to do the TC work for you. So if you're still in the 6 to 8 transactions, keep with the TC. I get that. But your 8, 10, 12, 20, 24, 36 transactions, if you do the math, say like 495, 595 times 12 transactions, you'll very quickly see that a paid employee, like a flat rate per hour, is cheaper. So there's kind of levels of that, but a TC is the most common one, obviously, that we add. Showing assistance or a runner, right? Having someone run a lockbox for you, or run something over to a thing, inspection or anything like that, keys, paying them 50, 100 bucks. It really does make a big difference. Leveraging that as you go forward with that. Okay, so all that's super, super, super important. Do you have any recommend for VA companies? Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. I've got one company that I love. So I'll talk about that for VAs. I have three people that use the same VA company, and I'm pretty hands-on with them. So I have a screen of the VA recommendations. Then you have specialists and all that, concierge, closing companies, movers, stuff like that. So this is what you're asking for. Recommend VA. So I have been working with Cyberbacker for probably, this is a virtual assistant company. There's a lot of them out there. I've had several clients use virtual assistants and they just did not have a good experience. And my honest opinion why VAs work and why VAs don't work is the accountability because you're giving the virtual assistant a task of things to do. This screen is just a sample of all the things that the VA could do. Tons. There's 30 different things on this screen, right? You give them the list to do, you give them a certain amount of hours, and you hope that they're doing it. Because while they're doing the behind the scenes stuff, you're out in the front lines selling and meeting with clients, things like that. I will tell you the reason why I recommend Cyberbacker is because they have that training and accountability. So without going into the weeds too much, the virtual I've had this is the I have three agents that currently use Cyberbacker. I have two more that had used them in the past. They used them for 6 months, and then they felt like they were in a good spot and didn't need to continue. So Cyberbacker does a great job. They do a 10-day training with the assistant. Oh, let me back up. They kind of do a needs analysis of what you need. They then give you multiple candidates to interview. They help you interview them. They ask questions. They're on the Zoom call with you. So you get three candidates. You choose one based on your needs. So they figure out what you need. They get the interview. They set up the three. They hire the person essentially with you. And then they have weekly and then monthly accountability check. Oh, sorry. Let me do this in the right order. So number one, they do the needs analysis with you. They give you the three interviews with the people. You choose one. Then the third thing that they do is they then do a 10-day training. So an example, so maybe you have follow-up boss as a CRM. They're going to make sure that agent, that virtual assistant is trained specifically on follow-up boss. If you have KV Core, they're going to switch that up. They're going to have make sure that they're specific on that. If you know that you are going to use social media software, specific scheduling software, we're going to identify what type of software that is, and they're going to make sure they're trained on that. So cool thing is they hire the person essentially for you. They get some training under their belt, which again, I don't think agents are great at because we're so busy running our business. And then the last thing is the accountability. They do weekly and then monthly accountability check-ins with you, with your virtual assistant. So I can't say enough good things about them. If you want me to connect you with one, I have a direct relationship with a lovely woman called Diana in Cyberbacker. And there's so many different types of cyberbackers. There's probably like 12 or 13 different virtual assistants. Because you can do ISAs, you can do all kinds of stuff. So they usually do have a contract. They usually have a 6-month contract. And if you look at it from the cost perspective, they probably range anywhere from $1,000, $1,500 to $2,000, depending on how many hours you need. But $1,000 a month for all the things that they can do to kind of keep you going in the right direction, I think it's worth the money. I really do. So hopefully that answers the question. And it leads me kind of to the final, like how you're going to build your business. So when we talk about leverage through people, this is a classic book that's been around for almost 2 decades, but it's still virtually true. As a solo agent, it could be just you, right? You could hire an assistant. That could be the second phase. And you could also hire a TC and a marketing assistant. I will tell you, I coach a lot of people at what we call this level 3, and they are killing it. They're able to do 24 to 36 transactions at this, what we call level 1, level 2, level 3, this first three top tier. They're making good money. Yes, they're still putting a decent amount of work in, but they're leveraging their TC, they're leveraging their marketing assistant or the virtual assistant, and they're thriving in that. The next tier, which is pretty common, you're going to see is what we call a smaller team, right? So then maybe yes, they have the TC, yes, they have a marketing assistant, and of course you, but then they maybe hire a buyer's agent, and then they go into maybe a couple different buyer's agent. Then you've seen them, I call them the football teams, nothing wrong with it. It's called the mega team where they have multiple layers, right? So they still have the leverage of the TC and a managing marketing person, maybe a client care coordinator, and then they have 3 to 4 listing and buyer agents, so they're much larger. So these are the 3 types of leverage business models out there. I will tell you, the solo agent with a couple assistants, like a virtual assistant and a transaction coordinator, you make the most money. I'm just going to be honest. The profit, when I'm talking about profit, small teams with, maybe, 2 or 3 buyers agents, they make about a 30-40% margin, which is good. The larger teams, as great as it is, I do see they have more overhead. They have more responsibilities. They're building something a little different. They're not looking necessarily for the large cash payout of profit margin. They're looking for the longevity of maybe phasing out of the business or more becoming like the CEO and kind of handing it off to a leader, right? So every business model is going to be different. It's going to be benefits or negatives based on who you are. I'm not anti teams. I'm pro profit, right? So if you can have the right systems and if you can have the right technology, and then if you choose to hire people, depending on what scale you want here, the sky is the limit for your potential. And this is not just in real estate. Mortgage people do this. I'm a coaching business. We scale these type of businesses. You can coach. You can scale any type of business using that kind of formula. Okay. So then I kind of will end with just I wanted to say, well, what's some of the things outside of people, technology, and systems, right? So I love ChatGPT, and I just said, what else? What am I missing? And it came up with some stuff that I remembered, I know, but I forgot about. And that's the beautiful thing about technology is there's always a blueprint. There's always somebody out there that's done something that's been in our shoes and has laid that. So just to look at this for the last few minutes. First, financial leverage using other people's money, joint ventures, hard money lenders. I have a lot of people that are in the real estate space where they buy and sell with, clients, but now they're flipping properties or wholesaling themselves, right? So leveraging other people's money. There's nothing wrong with that. Give them their percentage, and then you make your fee as well. Leveraging referral fees for agent to agents outside of your area network. I can't preach this enough. I don't know why we're not leveraging that more. I literally sent a referral to an agent outside my market. I made like 3,500 bucks. I didn't do anything. All I did was give the agent a name and a phone number of a buyer, and then I got paid, right? Legally, we're allowed to do that. So leveraging referral fees, I can't say that enough. Like you should build that into your plan. That should be part of your one of the 5 income streams you're bringing into your family, into your business. It's money, right? And all you're doing is either handing them a name and a referral, they're getting it done in Florida, Texas, Utah, wherever it is, or they're sending it to you and you're benefiting and giving them a little benefit. Tax strategies, we all are independent contractors, so making sure you have a good person that can do the proper write-offs. That's leverage, right? You've made good money. You don't want to pay all the taxes using the law on your side. Do it. So I thought those were great things. Leveraging marketing technology and platforms, yes. Reputation and networking, leveraging your past clients, leveraging your credibility, your awards, your designations. You worked hard to get that designation. Make sure you explain that to consumers because they don't understand all those initials behind your name, right? And then I think the last one is just say no strategically. Leverage your time, right? I think over time in this business, the better you can get at saying no and really trying to identify the yeses more quickly, not feeling guilt about it, feeling more structured about saying, hey, this just isn't aligned with what I need is okay. So just wanted to end this training with just leverage, 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 right? I'm going to send this to you in an email. It's a leverage audit tool I created. It's a little bit of a checklist. It goes through the presentation a little bit deeper. It gives you a little checklist. Start with your systems. Then link it to the technology. What can I do to automate and make this much easier for myself? And then if you're ready to hire people, make sure you're doing it in a strategic way. I see so often agents are rocking and rolling. They feel like they have the systems, they feel like they have technology, and then they hire these like 3 buyer's agents. And then within a year, those buyer agents leave because they don't feel supported, right? So be careful not to hire too quickly if you don't have the systems and technology in place. All right. Well, that's everything I got for you. If you need coaching, I'm here for you. You can scan this QR code, and we're happy to do a quick audit on all your leverage systems, technology, and people. You can see the structure of our coaching program. Most people do one-on-one for $395. That's kind of the average pricing right now. And our next training is next month. It's on September 18th. I can't believe we're in September, but it's all things Google. So I'm going to go through all kinds of the different technology tools, right, to leverage technology. So make sure you sign up. You can scan this QR code, and then it'll take you to this landing page, which has the sign up for you to register with Google Everything. It also gives you access to all the past trainings, including this recording. I'll pop this in there later on today. So I've got 7 or 8 of those already queued up for you. So if you want to lean back and do more training for free, it's all there. You can scan that and access that. And last but not least, if there's an opportunity where you can give me a Google review, I would love that. It's a way for other agents in different parts of the world to see the training that we offer here. So thank you for your time. Remember that leverage speeds up success. Don't hesitate on that, right? Audit those systems, audit your technology, try to fine tune and streamline certain things, and then hire that damn assistant, hire that virtual assistant. I don't. I honestly don't think you'll ever regret that if you do it in the right way. All right, y'all. So thank you so much. Let me stop recording.